For this video, our first geometry video, we're going to be discussing geometry basics. So what this video is going to be about is just several very important geometry vocabulary words that kind of make up the building blocks for everything we're going to do this year in geometry. These are all very, very basic things that I'm sure you've heard before, and we're just going to make sure we define them in the correct way for geometry. So, first thing we need to discuss is a point. So in geometry, a point is just a given location. It has no length or width. We always represent it by a little circle. Okay, and it's important to realize that this circle is just a stand-in. If we were talking about points in the most specific sense, it would literally just be a place. Where my pen is sitting right now is a point. It's just a location. We always name points with a capital letter. So this is point A. If I made another point, well, I could call that point B, and so on. Okay, so a point, just a location represented by a capital letter. Next thing we need to talk about is a line. Now a line is just a set of points that extends forever in either direction. Okay, so here we've got a line. Okay, and the arrows on either end show that it's going on forever in both directions. Sometimes the line will have the arrow, sometimes it won't. And what's important to realize is that it's just a set of points. Here I've got point A and point B, but I have another point on here right here. I have another point on here right here, right here, right here, right here, over here somewhere, and so on. Okay, it's just a set of infinitely many points that are in line with each other and go on forever. And lines are named by any 2 points on them or with a lowercase letter. So this one is represented by a lowercase l. So I could say that this is line L. Or I've got these 2 named points, A and B. So I can also call this line AB. And to make sure I know that it's a line, what I want to do is I draw a line on top and I put arrows on either end. And that tells me that this is line AB. Now I could also say name this point C. I could call this line AC. Or I could call it line CB. Or I could call it line BC going the other direction. For a line, it doesn't really matter which direction or which order we put our letters in. All we know, or all that matters, is that we name our lines with 2 letters, 2 points that are on the line, and we draw this little line on top. Or, like I said, a lowercase letter to represent the entire line. This is line L. Okay, now another very common thing that we're going to work with is what's called a line segment. A line segment is just part of a line that exists between 2 points. And segments are named by their endpoints. So here I've got a line. This is a line segment. This is line segment PQ. The way we write it is we go PQ. And this one we draw a line on top, but we don't put those arrows. This is saying that this is a line segment. It ends at points P and Q. Okay, we could also call this segment QP. Doesn't matter the order. Okay, what's important to realize is that this is actually a line that goes on forever this way, and it goes on forever this way, and the segment is just the part of it that exists between these points. Okay, and it's named by the endpoints. It's saying that it's the part of the line between this location and this location, point P and point Q. All right, so a line segment is a part of a line that is named by its 2 endpoints. Next up is a ray. And you can think of a ray as half of a line. It has 1 endpoint and extends forever in the other direction, or in one direction. And they're named by their endpoint and one other point on them. Okay, so this is ray XY. We always start with the endpoint, so in that case X, and then the one other point that we want to pick, that's Y. And the way we show that it's a ray is we draw a line with 1 arrow. That's XY. Now say I put another point on here. Let's call that one Z. Well, I could call this XZ. And because Z is on the same side of X that Y is, XY and XZ, they're the same thing. Right? And the reason I say that this is half a line is say I take a line, okay, put a point in the middle of it, let's call that M. Well, I've got two rays now. I've got a ray going this way, and I've got a ray going this way. Say I put this point here and I call it N. I point this point here and I call it O. Okay, then I've got ray M, N. That's one half of the line. And then I've got ray M, O. That's the other half of the line. And these two rays, when they together make up a line, they're what we call opposite rays. Okay, and we won't use opposite rays all that often, but it's a good thing to know that if you've got two rays that together form a line, we call those opposite rays. So a ray is just a line segment that has one endpoint and continues forever in one direction. Next up, we have the intersection. So the intersection is just the point where two lines cross. So here I have two segments. I have segment CD, and I have segment AB. All right, and we notice that these two lines cross each other at this point here, point E. So point E is the intersection of those 2 points. Now, not all lines have an intersection. Some of them go on and on forever next to each other. Those are what we call parallel lines, and we'll discuss those at a future time. But just know that if two lines cross, that point is called the intersection. And I should let you know that there is only ever one intersection point for any two lines. Okay, there can be only one intersection. All right, and we'll discuss that more as we go on in class, but it is important to know that two lines, either they don't cross or they cross exactly one time. All right, those are our only two options. Okay, next up, when two lines cross, they make what we call an angle. And an angle is the space between two intersecting lines, and it is measured in degrees. Okay, or it can also be measured in what we call radians, but those are something you'll worry about in a different class. So, angles are named by three letters: a point on one of their lines, the middle or the intersection point, which we also call the vertex, and a point on the other line. Okay, so like this angle down here could be called, well, my pen just stopped working. This angle could be called angle BAC, okay? BAC, angle BAC. I'll just stop writing that. Okay, it could be called angle BAC. It could also just be called angle A. You can just name an angle by its vertex, so it could be angle BA, it could be angle BAC. We could also do that backwards. It could also be angle CAB. Okay, it doesn't matter which of the two endpoints you put first. It only matters that the vertex is in the middle. Or it can be represented by a symbol. This is the alpha symbol, so it could be also angle alpha. All right, that doesn't really matter. But the one we'll be using the most is doing angles with three letters. And this symbol is just the angle symbol. And it's important to know that they're always going to be measured in degrees. Like I could say that this is 80 degrees. And the reason we use degrees is this 80 degrees is part of a circle, which is 360 degrees. And that's something we'll discuss later on in class. But important to know, angles are the space between two intersecting lines. They're measured in degrees, and they're named with 3 points. All right, some more vocabulary. Collinear points are points that are on the same line. Okay, for example, if I look in this picture, points P, Q, and R, those 3 points are all on the same line, so they would be what we are called collinear. Okay? However, X, Y, and Z, they are not all 3 on the same line, so they are non-collinear. All right? And what is interesting is that any 2 points will always be collinear. I can take a line and I can draw it between any 2 points, because a line is defined by at least 2 points. That is not true about 3 points. Okay, for example, here's 3 points that are not all 3 on the same line. But any 2 will always, always, always have to be collinear. Okay, so I've got 3 here, PQR, and then I've got 3 here that are not, X, Y, and Z. All right, next up is a plane. So a plane is just a flat surface made of points. Okay, you just think of it as like a piece of paper. It's just a two-dimensional shape, and it's made up of a bunch of points. Okay, and we oftentimes represent them by a quadrilateral like this one, but really the plane extends forever in all 360 degrees, extends for forever in all directions in its 2 dimensions. Okay, and planes are named by either 3 non-collinear points on a plane or by a capital letter. So one way to name this plane is we could just call it plane A. I'm sorry, not plane A. A is a point. Sorry. We could just call it plane M. M is the name of this plane. So we could just say, well, this is plane M. Or we can name it by 3 points that are not all on the same line. Well, here I have A is not on the same line as P and R. So I could name this plane A, P, R. All right, so those are my 2 options for naming a plane. Okay, they can either be a capital letter, like capital letter M, or it can be 3 non-collinear points, A, P, R. All right, and planes are pretty important. We'll be doing a lot of work inside of planes this year. Okay, so we also have coplanar points. We talked about collinear points were points that were all on the same line. Coplanar, should be an L there. Coplanar points are lines that are all on the same plane. Okay, so here I've got 2 planes, 2 flat surfaces that cross each other. Okay, and if I wanted to pick some points that were coplanar, well, G, E, O, and B, those are all on the same plane, so they're coplanar. F, A, L, I, and C, those are all on the same green plane, so they're coplanar. But if I looked at, say, like A and B, well, A is in the green plane, B is in the purple plane, so they are not collinear. All right, so that's how we figure, they are not coplanar. So that's how we figure it out. If they're in the same plane, they're coplanar. If they're not in the same plane, they're non-coplanar. And that is the end of our vocabulary that we need to know for basic geometry. So I'm going to leave you with a try it problem. And what I'd like you to do is answer these 4 questions. I'd like you to identify the one line segment that is drawn in this picture. I'd like you to name one ray that is drawn in the picture. I'd like you to give me another name for line L. And I would like to know another line for this yellow plane H. Okay? Based on what you've done in the video, you should be able to accomplish all 4 of these answers.